welcome everybody to this webinar. Um, Thank you for joining us. I'm Jonathan French. I'm president of Build the Era, and we welcome you to our webinar, our conversation with Safe Routes Philly. And Pete DeCarolis, who's joined us, is the coordinator of Safe Routes Philly. But first, to give you a little bit of background about Build the Era, we're a volunteer-powered transportation education advocacy organization. We're committed to making the Department of Transportation's role in American movement understood by citizens and activating them to engage for smart and equitable investments by DOT and for better multimodal planning in their communities. We thank you for being here to help contribute to the attainment of our mission vision and for living our values. Now, just a brief bit of news. I don't know if folks saw, but USDOT just did a press release today celebrating the 1-year anniversary of their call to action for the National Roadway Safety Strategy. And they are now up to 160 allies in action, including over 30 state DOTs who've committed to the national promoting and implementing the National Roadway Safety Strategy. And of course, Build the Era is a Allies in Action member. We became a member in August of last year, and as part of our commitment in that partnership as an Ally in Action, we've committed to have a conversation series of webinars around our 10 rules of road safety. We've held previous conversations on our other rules, accessibility and roundabouts, that can be viewed on our YouTube channel. And you'll see we've got our rules of road safety there, and also our website link are posted in the chat. But tonight we're focusing on our rule of education because we believe the following. For a population of safe users to exist within a safe system, they must all have the same knowledge of road safety. Road user education should exist and be accessible for all users and not limited to just drivers. Education should also start in elementary school at an age when behaviors are best ingrained and more likely to become lifelong. Now, Philadelphia is leading the way in the United States in road user education through their Safe Routes Philly program as part of their Vision Zero Philadelphia initiative. They're starting at that elementary school level when behaviors are best ingrained and teaching for all modes, not just driving, in the hopes of giving all children the knowledge and skills to safely navigate the built environment. Furthermore, by giving them this education at a young age, the hope is that they can retain this knowledge and skills as adults and even pass this knowledge on to their communities. So we are honored here to have Pete DeCarolis, Safe Routes Philly coordinator, with us tonight to tell us about this important program and how Philly is trying to save more lives in the future by educating children of the present. So just introduce Pete here. He joined the City of Philadelphia's Office of Transportation, Infrastructure, and Sustainability, abbreviated as OTIS, in August of 2022. And as the Safe Routes Philly coordinator, Pete works with the Philadelphia schools, libraries, community organizations, and other agencies to expand the reach of the city's traffic safety education programs. A teacher prior to joining OTIS, Pete taught science and math for the School District of Philadelphia and for the Franklin Institute. He previously managed a 2-year AmeriCorps Vista program connecting science museums with nearby underserved communities. Pete holds a Bachelor of Science degree in meteorology from Rutgers University and a master's in education from the Bank Street College of Education. He is honored to advocate for the traffic safety on behalf of Philadelphia's families, and as I've said, we are honored to have you here with us, Pete. So thank you very much, and go ahead and start your presentation.
Well, great. Thanks so much for having me. It's really great to be here and to have the opportunity to talk about this work. You may have noticed no traffic engineering or any sort of related things in my in the bio there, and that is something that we've found as I got the PowerPoint up here. Something that we've found as we've sort of expanded so much over the past 2 years with all the new infrastructure laws and the new funds available. We're starting to bring in, starting to get to 50-50, our traditional traffic engineers and planners, and then people like me who come from other really education sorts of backgrounds or other community engagement backgrounds and are also alongside our engineers and planners pushing this work. So it's overall just a really exciting time to be here and to be able to talk about this work. So hopefully I was able to talk my way through that and get the slide up, and we'll jump right in. So as Jonathan so correctly said, we are part of the Office of Transportation Infrastructure and Sustainability, and we sit in the Office of Complete Streets, specifically on the Vision Zero team. Our Complete Streets office is divided into 4 geographical districts of the city: north, south, east, and west generally. And then the Vision Zero team sort of covers the whole city, primarily with our education programs. So what is Safe Routes Philly? We provide training, resources, technical assistance to schools and their communities. That's the really short version. But we take Vision Zero and we're applying it to a disproportionately represented group. Our young 17 and under are overrepresented in crash data, just like many other demographics, or some other demographics are. And it's really one of the things that guided us toward this work. And we're both new and old in Philadelphia. My predecessor, Tara Woody, established the version 2.0 of the program a couple of years ago in 2001. Before 2001, it was sort of a loose partnership between the Philly Department of Health and the Bike Coalition of Philadelphia, doing a little bit more of the skills, bike rodeos, and a lot of sort of the practice events like that. And it was with the sort of retooling in early 2020 into 2021 that led us to really leaning into the education program and offering something that really we hadn't found anywhere yet across the country, a dedicated curriculum for pedestrian and bike safety that starts in kindergarten and even pre-K. So why did we do this? I'm excited to get people to talk back to me. I know usually I go to webinars and we're not allowed to talk. So this is actually really fun. Those of you that are here, think about, and if you're recording, I'm sorry. I'm not watching the recording, I'm sorry. But if you think about how you got to school, when I started elementary school in 1981, I walked to school every day. And I'm just wondering, and that right through high school, think about how you got to school when you were in school. And maybe how things might look different today. Because what we find is that over the last 50 to 60 years, the percentage of American kids walking to school has dropped precipitously. I've said that wrong, precipitously, a lot. Research from the National Centers for Safe Routes to School and the Safe Routes Partnership. The most recent data I could find from 2017 had the number as low as 9.5% of students walking to school, down from nearly 50% in 1968. So there's been a big shift, and there are a lot of reasons for that outside of just how we think about transportation. But if we think about Philadelphia, we're a city, we have a nice grid, we're relatively densely populated. When I'm with Philly folks, I like to ask them, what do we think the breakdown is for kids walking to school or being driven to school? And if you want to guess, by all means, go ahead. But I also will just go ahead and tell you the answer. In that, in our most recent survey, 22 to 23, and we do survey annually all the students in Philadelphia this question: how do you usually get to school? And about 28.3% are walking or biking, which is a slight decrease from 2021-22. Our students traveling by car is about 40%, and that's also a small decrease from 2021-22. Now, when I first looked at this data, I'm like, oh my gosh, most of the people are driving, but that's not really the case. When we think about active transportation, if you're taking SEPTA, if you're taking public transit, you're doing active transportation. You're doing something that we'd want to encourage you to do as a Philadelphia student. And if you count those together, it's almost half, 48% or so, are walking or using SEPTA or biking. And about 10% less, 40% are being driven. And, there's a lot of reasons for that. We'll talk about those. What I found really interesting was it's the transit that absorbed those small decreases in walking and being driven in a car. So our transit has risen 2% since the last survey, which isn't a lot, but it's interesting to see, especially now that we've sort of come out of the pandemic, how things are shaking out, particularly when we think about our bus transportation and the struggles that our school district, like many school districts, have in finding bus transportation since 2020 and 2021. But no matter how folks get around, We want people to move around their neighborhoods, stay from traffic violence. Honestly, at the core, there's ways I wish you would get to school, but in the end, no matter how you get there, I want you to get there safely. Um, and what we saw was an opportunity to really integrate what we've learned about cognitive development with our aim in reducing traffic deaths and getting that education out there as part of a safe system approach. Children under 10, especially under 10, they're still developing cognitive skills, speed, distance, when is it safe to cross? They literally look different to kids than they do to us as adults. And we need to incorporate into that our teaching and make that difference known, particularly when we talk to parents and caretakers. When can you let your kids start to be more independent? This idea of cognitive development and the way our brain, child's brains processes things and how they're different from our brains as adults is really important and baked into our curriculum. Children have trouble juggling multiple tasks. Biking involves balancing. You're looking out for cars. There's the physical movements of pushing the pedals. I'll admit to you all, I learned how to ride a bike at approximately 26 years old, which was also ironically the same year I learned how to drive a car. I'm very much a transit kid growing up just outside of New York City on the Jersey side of the river. So there's a lot of things that go into it. And once you've learned it and you never forget how to ride, you kind of forget all the things that go into, all the different things your brain is processing while you're trying to do this. And now layer on top of this, getting into the middle school years, thoughts about, how you look to your peers, the idea of risky behavior, that idea that you're invincible in every middle school age that I've taught as a teacher in one way or another, they all think that. So it's incorporating that into the curriculum and how we're addressing our programming and how we're teaching the teachers to teach their students.
So looking at the behavior of kids under 10, are you finding, I guess, one thing that I've read about is, behaviors are really, this age under 10 is when behaviors are really ingrained the most.
Yeah.
And by the time I'm seeing, fourth and fifth grade, they engage in riskier behavior, become distracted. I'm wondering if that's partially because of some of the behavior that they've, obviously their development, but some of the behavior they've actually witnessed without potential intervention.
Yeah, the idea that us as adults can set good examples for the students that we are trying to teach and bring this education to is a part of how we think, and certainly in how I think about how am I getting to the schools that I'm working with. I never ever want to drive to a school only because I'm trying to tell people not to. I can't show up in a car and tell you not to drive to school, right? Or try to convince you. So that is something we think about, leading by example and making sure they have good examples, which is one of the reasons why we really lean into our train the trainer model, get as many teachers in front of us as we can.
Yeah. So just one quick, I'm interjecting here, but folks, if you do want to if you have a question, just please put it in our chat pod, and we'll have after the presentation here, we'll have a Q&A session to get to those. So go ahead, Pete.
Again, number of years in middle school, I am used to, and at the Franklin Institute, I'm used to all sorts of questions and strange things happening. So don't hesitate. Sure. So we start our curriculum with pre-K, and we have our book list, and hopefully we'll be adding a book about roundabouts to it soon.
And a purple mascot named Rhonda.
Yes.
Perhaps.
And we have an award-winning roundabout in Philadelphia as well. So I really think I can get the streets department on board and get everybody a copy of this book in the school district. If I can. That'd be great. But we start in pre-K with very simple games. Songs about crossing the street that match with Mary Had a Little Lamb, scavenger hunts. Did you see a bike? Did you see a traffic light? Did you see a crosswalk? So trying to get students, even at this age, used to just observing what's around them, just using their eyes. I've got a 4.5-year-old now. Kids are curious, and if you let that curiosity go and you let them explore, you've got a foundation. Like you said, if we start young and we've got these ideas in them, we're growing people who can use our transportation network safely, and hopefully buy into this idea of a safe system and Vision Zero because it is really radically different from the way we've thought about transportation and before. So this is really, really fun to get to do. And I mean, little kids are great. I taught middle and high school, but always in the back of my mind, I'm like, little kids are fun. I wish I had just had a collection of all the drawings and all the different things. Work on that during the next little bit. But as we move out of pre-K, get into kindergarten, we start really with more of the rigorous lesson planning and standards-based lessons and curriculum that we have all the way up currently. More coming, but currently through fifth grade. There's an instructor's guide that goes over all the lessons for both pedestrians and bicyclists. We have an activity book that, although it's best for grades 3 to 5, you can start certainly with support younger and maybe even a little bit older into 6th and 7th grade, depending on, again, where students are. As much as we talk about developmental abilities with students and making sure that our education matches that, there's great variety, as you all know, in when kids reach certain milestones. So, these are suggested ages, but we've used them for ages outside of that 3 to 5 range too. It's a nice 20-page book. There's a lot of fun things to do in it. One of my favorite parts of the sheets for that we give to the parents. Just very simple. This is when and how you can release your kids to independence, right? You're holding their hand through kindergarten, first, second grade. You're maybe a few steps behind them as they get into 4th and 5th grade. And then as we build into the middle years, we'll have those next steps to make sure that it's not just the student learning what to do, but also the caretaker learning how to guide the student through this process and give them, again, they're learning themselves at the same time as their kids do. We have that reading list that's curated through right now for our middle school, even though the lessons aren't there yet and are still in development. We have a lot of resources about biking, how to bike with your middle schooler and your elementary school student. We have publications in concert with the Bike Coalition of Greater Philadelphia called Bike Nice, and just that idea of shared responsibility and rules of the road, and that everyone's following, again, that same thing, so that as we think about education and especially expectations, we're all behaving or we're teaching our students to behave in the way that the adults have already been taught. And that full curriculum should be out and piloted by the end of this calendar year, so fall of the next school year. And we'll be working not only with the School District of Philadelphia, but excitingly with SEPTA, because we have a whole module just dedicated to transit safety, because when you hit 7th grade in Philadelphia, if you're a mile away from the school, you're not getting on the yellow bus anymore, but they will give you a transit pass. And up until now, and really much like the yellow buses, there's no education that goes along with that. There's no thing that goes along with the tool we're giving you. So we're just started a relationship with the transportation department at the school district to see about ways to give them this and new information that we're putting together so that they can distribute it to their teachers and their students and go out with whatever information that a parent gets or a caretaker gets when their kids are getting signed up for the yellow bus or getting their transit pass in 7th grade. So really looking forward to that one, actually. Again, learned how to drive at 26, so big into transit. We do have 3 lessons available for high school that are project-based. They're either a PSA, making your message, you're creating a public service announcement, or you're interviewing and traveling through history, you're interviewing people in your community, learning how the community and transportation, how things have changed over time. And there is one more that is just about ready to go, not quite there yet. But again, just a project-based, a lot of interviewing, sketching, almost more ELA style, English language arts style projects than the elementary school curriculum, which very much lives in sort of with PE teachers and in that world. My dream is to have a STEM module that we're working on for the middle school, so that some of our students can maybe think about being designers and planners and actually getting into this kind of work when they graduate. Because again, if you remember the bio, nothing about traffic or even municipal planning, and yet here I am, and we want to expand that even further as we work with our young folks, teaching them not just how to be safe, but how to contribute to their community and the city as a whole by choosing this work once they graduate. And we'll talk a little bit more about that on the last slide in our What's Next section. But what we have found as we push these out to our teachers is, look, we used to walk, we don't walk anymore as much. Is that bad? Is that good? Well, we find that when students are active in the morning, walking, biking, taking public transportation, they're going to school more often. Their grades are better. and their negative behaviors go down. We are asking, at least in our current form, we're asking a lot of teachers. We're talking to people that are already, and from experience, operating at 125%. And right now, I have me and a bunch of stuff that they have to teach, and that's about it. And we're looking for other resources to give them and stipends and ways to support them. But if I want you to do some sort of program, I can teach you how to do it, but I don't have the staff to do it for you, or right now the funds to get you some extra compensation to work outside of your 8:30 to 3:30. But these have done a good job sort of getting people on board as we figure all those other incentives out and ways to support the program better.
Yeah.
So we really talk, there's no school in Philadelphia or probably anywhere that doesn't want a way to get kids to show up more. So this has been really an in to some of the schools that we've been working with so far.
Yeah, that's great. I was going to ask you, like, the pushback that you had from
Yeah.
teachers and also education associations, that represent them, if and just any organization that represents education in the city. If you've been
Yeah.
this, I mean, showing that there's increased rates of attendance, better grades, and fewer negative behaviors, I think would really,
Yeah.
seem to be a very big benefit for the effort that's being put in. And I think the biggest thing too is it's not quantifiable yet per se, because you're still going through
Yeah.
it, but the hope is that this will save lives. And I'm
Yeah.
just kind of wondering how that reaction when you say that this will be life changing for folks, what the feedback you're getting is.
And there are two constants that I've found in the last 2 years approaching schools, teachers, and administrators. No school has said no to this or that they don't need it, right? They recognize the not just the chaos of the drop-off line, but they recognize the increase, and the rise in fatalities over the past few years, particularly since 2020. Does that translate into that we have the time and the resources to join you on this? And that's very different depending on the school. One of our schools in the northeast part of the, well, not the northeast part, in Fishtown, part of Philly, if you know it, they really want this. They've received a school slow zone, so we're installing some infrastructure, speed cushions, corner clearances, bump outs around the school. But the issues that those schools are facing in terms of the community outside the school are such that we're not on their list right now for traffic safety, and that's okay, right? You're getting your flow zone. Here's the infrastructure. When you're ready, we'll come and get the curriculum out to you. When I get my stipends, when I get some more vistas on board to help do this more, we'll get there. So when we've gotten, I don't even really want to say pushback because they want it. They just don't see the bandwidth right now. And another reason why I haven't gotten a lot of pushback is I don't have that dedicated relationship with the administration at 440 North Broad for the school district just yet. Again, there's a lot of reasons for that. The school still is district is relatively recently coming out of state control and into local control. We just got a new superintendent last year, which is, just like a mayoral transition, something to sort of you hang on and ride through, but also an opportunity to start fresh with some new people and sort of reestablish what's important about our program in terms of not just the actual safety of the kids walking to and from school, but that sustainability, that greener part of not having a bunch of cars idling in front of the school an hour in the morning and the hour in the afternoon, and that long-term idea of we have to shift how we get around, for very important reasons. You may have noticed the meteorology degree back at the beginning in my bio, right? There's a lot of good reasons to do this. So pushback, no, but reality, yes. A lot of schools don't have the capacity for this, and we're working to do that as best we can. One lucky thing about Philly is with the charter school system, with the number of charter schools we have, they have a little more flexibility and they have a little more resources in terms of being able to pay outside of the usual school hours to their teachers. So that's helping, and we're working on a way to offer that to our school district teachers as well. Have not talked to the union yet, which is probably, I'll keep under the radar as long as I can. But once we have that relationship with the curriculum development people at the school district, my dream is that every teacher that comes back in August or is new in August sits through half an hour with me, just like you guys are, and they have those resources waiting for them, and it's just part of what they do normally. So we're getting there. And I'll probably have more stories along those lines when we do. Another thing that
Great.
we try to do to get folks on board is, especially in our communities, parents have multiple kids, they're working multiple jobs. They're often, parents at home on their own too. Families look very different depending on where in the city we look. And just getting to school can be the barrier for the kid. Mom or dad or whoever, grandma, they've got to get to work. Or, I can give you very specific stories of a grandma with her 3 kids that just wasn't mobile. She couldn't get up and cross the street with her kids to get them to school. The school is across the street, but those kids are too small and the drivers are not stopping. And the paint and the stop sign and the yellow sign isn't doing it. But when we have that extra adult there to support in something like a walking school bus or through our walking programs, that grandmother or whoever it is has a trusted person that will get their kid to school. And if it's the mom that's got to rush off to work because they can't be late, they have a trusted adult to get their kid from the corner near their house to the school, and they know they're going to get there. And it's another big thing that is attractive that I think can sell us to families and communities and HSAs and PTAs, in addition to the real academic and attendance benefits that the principals and the teachers are really excited about.
Yeah.
One of the things I really hope to do this year is get a number of walking school buses going. We have 2, well, sometimes 3 that are run with us. Some popped up on their own. I'm hoping to run come this spring with 8 schools running these guys. It's just so much fun. I cannot bottle and present to any stakeholders the feeling of walking or biking in a bike bus with the students. And people come in every neighborhood I've done this in, South Philly, North Philly, Center City, people come out and they start spontaneously clapping for the students as they go by. And it's great. And I just wish I could, like, in that moment, have every principal, every superintendent, every council member, every mayor there to see that. I think that would move these things along that much quicker. But again, it's something that we're really trying to do. If we get more walking school buses at more schools, we have more opportunities to show up to stakeholders and decision makers what this can really do for our communities. Edward Gideon is kind of our poster school for the walking school bus. They've been doing it long before I joined the city.
If you live in Oregon, you can lower.
And they are. Awesome. I wish I lived in Oregon sometimes.
To ensure your eligibility. Second, you need to have an election.
The school's been working with us. They are what is called a community school. The just outgoing mayor, Mayor Kenny, established at the time 12, and we're up to 24 now, schools that had a city employee working at and with the school whose sole job was to work with communities, nonprofits around the schools to connect services to the school's families. And we are one of those things. And it just worked at the school. And they've had a walking school bus going most of the year. They take a break in December and January and February. But most of the school year, they've been out there with 10, 20, sometimes 30, 40 kids if the weather's nice enough. And what's beneficial about a school like Gideon is there is most of the students are coming from the same few blocks. So it was very easy to just go, oh, we start here, we walk here. And since they've been doing that, and we're hoping to get them up to 3 days a week. They've had 1 day and even 2 days in the past. They're shooting for 3 days a week when they resume this March, which is frighteningly close. And along with the walking school bus, we've been able to, through the sort of the visibility of the students walking, we've been able to get some speed cushions around the school, some corner clearances around the school. And now our next step is to expand that to where the school bus starts. Because I'm meeting kids at the corner and I'm telling students to meet me on a corner where there's cars in the crosswalks and on the sidewalk. And if I'm telling a kid to walk here, then I also need to make sure that corner is safe. So that's the next step in this. But getting those groups out there, it's visible, it feels good. It's just a great thing. It's one of my favorite things about the program. My other favorite thing is getting to walk with the crossing guards. They're not part of my unit or my office, but they're just so much fun to talk to. but things that help get through some of the pushback from particularly teachers that are just busy. They want to develop healthy habits for their students, particularly when we're talking with our elementary phys ed teachers. One of the reasons why we go to the schools that we do is that we evaluate schools not just as traffic crashes, but what are the health indicators in the community? What are the income indicators in the community? What other stresses are acting on the school and its families besides just the traffic? And diabetes and obesity are two of those health issues that are on the top of the list of things that affect our city as a whole. And particularly certain communities are affected far more than others. And it's one of the things we factor into because of the health benefits on top of the safety benefits. That idea that we're reducing congestion and we're not idling in front of a place where we're sending our kids for an hour every morning and afternoon, getting folks out of cars and onto SEPTA and onto bikes and onto their sneakers is a way to do that. And we certainly push that as we meet more principals and talk more with the school district. And one sort of almost, I think, maybe not surprising, but something we didn't really think would happen is that community connection. A walking school bus is the community is literally handing their kids off to the school. And in addition to just that sort of that real idea of a school being part of its community, the teachers and the adults now have an opportunity to intercept things that are starting on the walk to school. Kids are saying stuff I don't know if this is the right term anymore, but when I taught middle school, it was beef. And if we heard that on the way to school, we're able to pass that along to the teachers and to the community coordinators there. And they're able to sort of do their interventions before the incident even happens. And that's a great example, again, something we found at Gideon School, the one we've been working with, and it's something we talk about. And that, again, is really attractive beyond the safety benefits, beyond the support for the families, beyond the sustainability benefits. Here's another reason to do this. And to get more support behind it. By and large, our most visible things are our walk, bike, and roll to school events. Here you see what was our single biggest school event, at least in my tenure, 50 students at the Newland Fells School during Bike Month in May. It wasn't on the actual bike and roll to school day. But this principal is so into it and lets the kids bring their bikes. Now, usually bike to school day is literally the kids bike to school, they go off, bye, have a good day. We don't do this school doesn't do a big ta-da in the morning. You come with your bike, they're going to give you a pass, they're going to put your bike in the auditorium, and you're going to get to skip the last period of the day and go to an assembly. And we got to give a brief safety presentation, helmets and the ABC checks. And then 50 kids got on their bikes with the principal, and the principal said, we're going to ride around until we get tired. And they just rode around the school for the rest of the day until school was over and beyond. I would be dishonest not to say this is in memory of a student who back in 2017 or 2018 was struck and killed while riding his bike by a driver doing things at a stop sign that aren't necessarily MUTCD compliant. And it's, this is, I think, the first year that the whole school had turned over, so no one knew the kid this time beyond me and the teachers. But such a positive from such a horrible thing, and it really made me rethink sort of how we're doing the bike to school day, because getting to do it at the end of the day, the kids have the incentive because they're missing that last class. They're getting to go outside. Really, I think I'll do these things, and I did get the shot of the. That's one of not just one of our educators, but somebody I work with very closely that leads a lot of this. That's Stephanie Ridgway. She's our Indigo community coordinator. So she is in charge of the coordination with the Indigo program, which is the city of Philadelphia's bike share owned by the city. And if I'm out there doing bikes, she's out there with me.
Not to mention, if they're having
right,
fun, they're more likely to retain it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so this will give us a chance to sort of really build into that idea. We built the curriculum, we built the train the trainer model. We're looking for those individual and district-wide connections, and now we can sort of move to let's just go in and do an assembly. And I noticed somebody from the Early Childhood Mobility Coalition on the call right now. And one of the great things, if you know Sam Pearson, who also part of that group, she was able to pilot some K and first grade balance bike programming, where we went to 2 schools in the Kensington section of Philly and stayed at each school the whole day and just went through every kindergarten and first grade class. 10, 15 minutes in the auditorium, learning how to put on a helmet, coloring and designing your own helmet, and getting fitted, and then going off to the gym and riding a bike rodeo course with Sam and some other bike coalition people. And that's, I may have talked about a lot of dreams already today. Getting just a bike with a big old cargo hold on it, hopefully an e-bike, throw 15 to 20 balance bikes in there and just go from school to school a couple days a week. I would really do it. And again, getting them young and doing something fun with them and just reinforcing all the safety things that are already in our curriculum, but being able to do that school-based or that skills-based training with the actual materials. As much as we push and like biking, if you don't have a bike, we're not in a position to help just yet. And if we can have that lending library of bikes that we can take with us and transport also on a bike, that would just be fantastic. That would be aces. So what is next for us as we think about ways to get this education out there? We're launching our Youth Ambassador Program pilot with some school partners that already have an after-school, high schools that have an after-school biking program. And it's just sort of giving them the opportunity to think of this as part of their capstone project if they're seniors. Particularly our charter schools also have some sort of graduation requirements that are community project based, and being able to use that and say, here's our ambassador book. Go ahead and either design an intersection. We'll first learn about what Vision Zero is, what a safe systems approach is, why it's so different from what's come before, and then have some sort of deliverable product, be it a PSA presentation to their peers or to their younger peers in middle school, or some actual design for some intersection or road that they've researched. That middle school curriculum is coming together with help from the school district, our teachers, our consultants, and SEPTA. Part of that I'm really excited about it is formalizing our project-based module where we teach them what the high injury network is. We teach what these proven countermeasures are, your speed cushions, your corner clearances, your raised crosswalks, and then send the kids out. Find a high injury network intersection near the school, near where you live, near where you play, and tell us what you think we should do with it. And then they get to come back and they present to us and some other colleagues from the office. And now we have a chance with, and actually our funding for these curriculums is coming from TASA. So the Transportation Alternative Set Aside. I think Pennsylvania uses a different term. I think most states call it TAP, Transportation Alternatives Program. But whatever you call it, it's really let us sort of build this unique program of standards-based curriculum and project-based curriculum now that can get this education piece to as many people as we can, as young as we can. So hoping to launch those walking school buses this spring. And we've invited about 30 schools so far to our professional development session in March, which again will sort of be a pilot of what I'm doing with you right now, trying to use the technology to get as many teachers as we can. Again, without that sort of blessing of the school district just yet, at least getting in front of the teachers that are interested and want to work with us. And yeah, I think that is about all I have. Here's the contact information. I'm sure this will get sent out to you, but our website, every piece of curriculum is available to download for free, every worksheet, every lesson plan. And if you want me to print them out and bring them to you, I will do that. And then some other folks, we work closely with the Safe Routes Partnership and with the Walk Bike to School Days. Because again, any opportunity to get something really big and really fun that ends up on television, schools seem to like when we do that. So there's our resource list, and I will turn it back over to Jonathan and any questions that might be out there.
Great. So I got a couple before we get into it, into the questions that are in the chat. One was the Vision Zero Ambassador Program. That I saw that, and that was just such a great idea of putting those folks out into the community. Is there a plan to sort of track these ambassadors and how they progress in adult, or I guess the question I would have is how you're determining success. Have you thought about like doing surveys of kids as they go through the different grades and just kind of see like what knowledge they sort of retain compared like a baseline or something like that, or just is there any plans to do that to sort of
Yeah.
get some measurables in terms of the knowledge that's retained from, this wonderful program?
Yeah, it's something that we incorporated into our scope of work for the middle school curriculum, and getting that both. Oh no, I'm going to forget my terms. And getting the feedback during the lesson, and then going back to it afterwards, and get us to your formative feedback and your oh man, don't tell my professors that I can't remember it, but it is part of the new ask. We don't have anything in place right now. We know it's something that's missing, and so we're actively working with the new curriculum and the consultants right now to get something like that in place, be it for the curriculum, be it for the teacher training part of it, or for the student facing side of it. Certainly, at least for the project based part where they're presenting. There is a big reflection portion in the Vision Zero Youth Ambassador program. So as we get our first group through the program this spring, we'll see how that relates, but also how can we track them afterwards? Do they come back and be adult Vision Zero Youth Ambassadors, which is sort of what we're modeling our program after in some ways. I think we're coming into year 3 of the Vision Zero, we'll say, adult ambassador program. And they've just been proven a great resource in sitting in communities that we might not otherwise be able to access. Because when the message is coming from your people, it's almost like a whole different world.
Yeah, because we know, driver's education, just the thought is that, more education isn't going to work, but I think it's got to be a specific kind of education, the education that you folks are doing. I mean, obviously, education is just a part of a safe system, but I think it's an important part, and it's one that we don't really emphasize, I think, enough sometimes. But the last question I have is, have there any other municipalities reached out to you like we're doing here and just asked you to kind of present and have taken things away and have started their own programs?
Yeah, certainly a few schools in Jersey and some from around Pennsylvania have reached out for copies of the curriculum, for suggestions. Really, we get probably our most interactions that sort of mirror that when we're at the state safety conferences. There are 2 a year, and inevitably at one of those we'll run into somebody. Run into some great people from NHTSA. The last 2 conferences, one was in Pittsburgh and State College, have really shown some interest and have come out to visit and see what we're doing, and sort of help give us ways to be that example for others that are looking for it. It's, every now and then we'll get that very random hit from somebody that's researching the stuff in some other part of the Midwest, or not so much the West Coast, because you kind of have your own things going out there. You've kind of got a handle on it too, like we hopefully have. So, it's something we look to. It's one of the reasons why we've presented the information on the website the way that it is. And we're doing a good job getting the message out in conferences when we're working with our peers. It's certainly something we'll keep an eye on. Again, like I kind of said at the beginning, I forgot it was before we started. It's a weird position to be in, thinking that people are coming to us to learn about this. It's just really neat. If we get one of the things we want to track, is we've had trouble tracking this within the city itself. Who's using our curriculum regularly? Once we've trained you on it, are you doing it every year? And that's something we'll hope to learn about again with our middle school development this year, that we'll be able to learn from and learn how that's going.
Yeah, great. So you had a question from Tracy.
Sure.
She's asking, how do we teach kids the cognitive skills for street crossing safely beyond look both ways before crossing the street?
Yeah. It's a combination of knowledge building and skills building. So our curriculum is pairing, essentially classroom education with then the step-by-step instructions of what to do when you're out there on the corner, be it a real corner or in a, like a little safety village or a traffic garden. So what our curriculum leaned into was making sure we have that for every knowledge point that we're teaching, there is a matching skill that can be practiced, and linking those two together to help to not just make it stick in the mind, but make it so that it's useful and repetitive, and it just becomes second nature as they grow up and start thinking about other modes like driving and biking. And I did forget to talk about driving a little bit. But really, all I would say is in Pennsylvania, there is no mandate that schools have to teach driver's education. So there's no guarantee that anyone's getting even that. My excited part to look at it is to look at the distracted driving techniques and the group that's out there teaching kids how to talk to their adults who are driving them in that sort of way to get them to put down their phone. Again, a trusted messenger sort of idea.
And not to
It's
mention,
about the most I'll do with driving.
Yeah, drivers are pedestrians and cyclists too. And
Yeah.
the more I think you get those groups together at an early age, the more they can sort of
Yeah.
understand the interaction between everybody. And I think it's all the more better for understanding all of the modes. And whereas we just as a country just focus right in
Yeah.
on teenage drivers and driving. And it's just that we lose the pedestrian, the bicyclist, that piece of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think what you're doing is a much more effective method that I think, like I said, if we can replicate it, will save lives.
Yeah.
So does Safe Routes include crossing guards as part of your effort?
So not directly. The crossing guard unit did recently join the streets department. They were part of the Philadelphia police up until about 3 years ago. They just recently completed their transition and are fully in the streets department, along with another safety group called the Public Safety Enforcement Officers, who focus on vehicles that are blocking crosswalks and sidewalks and bike lanes. So they all work together. They're two separate jobs, sort of in the same silo. So I know them. They don't sit far from us. I get to join their trainings and give them our materials. But they are not an official part of my duty, but I work closely with them. And again, they are some of the best people I've met, period, let alone in this job.
Yeah. So the Rick Holt, I think you can see he's here. He had a question about basically with the efforts that you're doing, is it all volunteer, or do you use the funds to help support parents who could help volunteer, but they're limited financially, and
Yeah.
they really want to engage in the efforts, but they can't do it financially?
It's something we've learned recently that is one of the biggest barriers is how do you compensate, be it adults outside the school or the teachers and admin themselves, for that extra time of being there for a walking school bus, being there for a bike rodeo. And until we figure that out better, it's going to be a continuing barrier. One of the things that we've tried to do is find some funding sources from some of those smaller grants to fund some stipends for walking school bus leaders in the way that our adult Vision Zero ambassadors receive stipends to create and run the events in their communities on the adult version of that program. So it's something we're thinking about. We've been working with some folks from Safe Routes Partnership to find funding streams that would let us do that kind of work with, let us pay out money in that way. So we're working on it. We hope to get it more. We know it's something we need to do. And until then, it's, we do have Ava still working with us. So the office is doubled from me to two. And, it's our hope that even with that, one extra person doesn't sound like a lot, but it does do a world of good in being able to sort of have somebody that a school can know is their person and will be available to help them when they need. So that's the best I can do right now. Hopefully this time next year, we're talking more about stipends, either for teachers and people within the school or community members outside the school that want to contribute.
Yeah. And are you providing e-bike education for middle and high school?
Not yet. Certainly, our high school, we have the high school projects, but we don't yet have a specific cycling curriculum for them. As we develop the middle school curriculum now, it is one of the things that is going to be addressed in terms of safety. We're not exactly sure how yet. We've just started sort of our best practice review to see what there is out there and how other people are approaching it and how, other bike coalitions and other advocacy groups maybe think would be the right way to approach it. It's interesting because every public event I'm getting asked, what are you doing about scooters and e-bikes? And I'm like, teaching them how to ride them. It's interesting just the collision of different priorities and viewpoints. It's always interesting. But gosh, I wish I could just give everybody an e-bike, including me, actually, because Yeah, it's a thing, and thinking about our students, especially, there's such a large charter network, and I don't know, compared to other big cities, it just feels like there's a lot of charter schools in Philly. It's a big part of the system, which kind of takes you away from that catchment model. So schools that we have really high percentages of students who are being driven, it's because you're not getting a yellow bus. You might not get a yellow bus, especially past fifth grade. Um, and how else are you going to, you're not putting your kid on SEPTA, and I can understand that. So it's how can we give those tools, and certainly the middle school education, and addressing e-bikes is one way to get that out there. Because, man, when I come to a school and it's 80% private vehicles, I don't know what to do right off the bat necessarily to help with that. So no, but that's going to change is the short answer.
Okay. And just, I guess the final question I would have, and other folks, feel free to still put some questions in the chat here, but what would you say would be the first step for a community that's looking to implement something like this? Where's the best place to go to get something like this started in your community?
It's going to vary from community to community. What we found success, what I found successful, are your home and school associations, your parent teacher associations. Those are folks that are already interested. They've joined for a reason. They're concerned about their kids' education at the very least, and probably more. And parents, to a degree, especially if they've already joined, they have the capacity to think about the extra things that come along with pushing active transportation at your school. So if looking at your parent groups, and folks that are already working with and adjacent to the school, is helpful. Now, if you have an Oregon or a Maine, or either a bike advocacy group or an actual Department of Transportation that's really embracing these things, that's the second place I would go, because often, like us, they'll have the resources, or at least connections to others that do have those resources. Here's your step-by-step guide to launching a walking school bus program, or some other sort of bike bus or active transportation.
Great. So I don't see any more questions in the chat. Just folks can feel free to unmute. You can unmute yourself, and we can, if you have any questions to ask live.
I'll say, Jonathan,
sorry.
Hey,
I got
Rick.
a question
Go
for
ahead.
you. You're doing a lot of community engagement, which is a wonderful thing, obviously. So do you go into each neighborhood? How's that work as far as, I know in Cincinnati, we have council members going into neighborhoods and having the conversations around what are you looking for from safe streets and these kind of things, so we can incorporate if it's design or whatever it happens to be. But is that is that part of your community engagement, or how's that work for you? I mean, getting to talk to parents and community.
Yeah, when we're thinking about schools and where we want to make sure we're getting our materials out to, be it either the education materials or the technical assistance around conceptual designs or traffic calming designs. It's kind of a mix of who's contacting us, because it's very important to them and they will find everything, and those lists of schools that we know from our traffic studies and health studies and other community factors that really need the help. One of the recent examples of that would be we received a RAISE grant this year to address 6 schools in North Philly with 5 school zones, in addition to other signal upgrades, bigger corridor repaving projects. Just this really big package that the centerpiece is, every metric that we look at, is it crashes? Is it gun violence? Is it poverty? Is it, they're always in the same swaths of the city. And really, if I do my job well, by the end of my tenure, there's just going to be one giant school zone from River across Center City to the Schuylkill, because you could connect all the schools and like where if it's a heat map, like whatever it is, it's the same places, and it would, I'm really curious and excited to start on this sort of 6-school project with the race grant, to think of so that many school zones at once, all in the same neighborhood. I think 3 of them actually abut each other, and then one is contiguous with a new neighborhood slow zone that was awarded this year. So it's actually, like, it started as a joke a little bit, but it's starting to come to fruition. These slow zones are starting to connect.
Well, congratulations.
So
You're
it's
focusing on
50-50.
infrastructure while you're doing education versus just education, which is the key, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And, you do both, you get something greater than the sum of the individual parts. And so, in the frankly very often situations where schools come to me desperate for speed cushions or stop signs or something, and, I wish I had that button to get things built. I'm not the streets department. I'm the Office of Complete Streets. So, we do a lot of the design work and suggesting and certainly getting funds to build things. We're not the folks that actually get to build this. So there is a disconnect sometimes in what people come to me for and what I can give them. The education and the programming, the walk to school days is kind of an effective, like, we can do this quickly right away. We want to do the other stuff and we can do it. It's just going to take a lot longer, and I can't promise when. So it gets our foot in the door for the people that are looking for us. And hopefully we can get them engaged enough and convince them in the programming and the education enough that that's enough to get us started. And when you have 50 kids biking to school 2 or 3 days a week, it's that much easier to get the community on board with a larger scale traffic calming project. Hi.
I have a question. Hi, Pete. I came in late. I apologize. I had another meeting. But did you address how you work with law enforcement at all? Are they engaged with you, or do you mostly work with the schools and not necessarily with public safety?
So my specific position as the Safe Routes to Schools coordinator is primarily with the schools. And now that the crossing guards have moved out of the police department, I don't have that necessarily direct connection to law enforcement. As part of the Vision Zero team, one of our tasks is to create a law enforcement facing training to get rank and file on board with a safe system approach and a Vision Zero approach. And enforcement is one of those E's. I know some Safe Routes to Schools programs have dropped it, and some Vision Zero programs have dropped it, but certainly with the with what the state has allowed us to do with automated speed enforcement and automated red light enforcement, and stop arm cameras on school buses, which is something I get to talk about next week and learn about, and I'm very excited. Those are the places where I think we'll be able to more directly in my role interact with it. But outside of that very specific law enforcement facing training, teaching, also expanding that to the rest of the city workforce, not just the law enforcement arm, getting this idea of, if something happens, it's more than just the person that was involved. There's bigger things that we can get to so that it doesn't happen again. And that's a hard thing to convince people of, just because it's a different way to think.
Right. And yeah, I'm in the city of Chicopee, and we just put a bunch of speed tables near the high school on a street that people generally zoom down a lot. And it has made a big difference, but, we still have issues with kids jaywalking, and, it's, and again, we've gotten away from having those either student crossing guards or some buddy controlling where people are crossing, So
it's interesting that you bring that up. So the first crossing guard training I got to attend 2 years ago now. That crossing guard district manager told me about the AAA safety patrol program. I just didn't know about it. And it used to be in Philly, and it's been gone for a time now. But as we roll out sort of the middle school version of the ambassadors, that's where I see reconnecting with AAA, getting those resources, and, kind of making another module that goes along with the curriculum training. But hey, the other thing is, having taught in the school district, so many kids have siblings at the elementary school, at the middle school if they're in high school. And I think that's really a resource to get not only the Vision Zero idea, the education idea, get kids acting predictably and safely, even when they're middle schoolers. Having that where they're doing the work themselves as the crossing guards, as part of the safety patrol, is something that we're going to lean into as we expand the ambassador program into the middle years down from the high school years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Pete. And thanks
Thank
for
you.
staying on a little bit later.
No worries.
Appreciate it. Great questions, everyone. And I do want to tell you about our next event that's coming up. You can see 1 second here. So we have Isaac Huffman, who is the Mount Vernon City Library Director, and we're going to have a conversation with him about the Mount Vernon Library Commons Infrastructure Project. It's a $53 million project, and it just won a $12.5 million grant to install 78 electric vehicle charging ports. So this is really quite the project, and we're going to have a good conversation with Isaac in a few weeks. So we hope you can join us then. So with that, just thanks everybody. Thank you again, Pete, for joining us.
Thank you.
And make sure to follow Build DeEra on all our socials at Build DeEra and our website at builddeera.com. Thanks everybody, and have a good night.